Welcome to the Natural Resource Inventory and Mapping Committee meeting. This is a special meeting on December 16th. Present are committee members Karen McKnight, Brian Oakes, Penny Miller, and myself, Sandy Wilmot. Okay. No public comment, so we'll move on to our tiered ecological priorities discussion. What I have, let's see, few updates on dates. So Jens agreed to meet with the Planning Commission and Conservation Commission on January 16th, right?
That's what you had said.
Okay. And before that, we were trying to schedule a meeting with him so that we could go over that presentation. And he said that January 8th at 10 a.m. Would be a time that would work for him. I'm not sure if that is on GoToMeeting or in person, so I'll clarify that and let you know. I assume you would be online, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's real possible that he would be too. So if so, it would be a virtual meeting only if he wants to be online.
It's January 8th, you said?
Yeah.
At 10.
Yeah. Here's your friend, Ryan. Right on time.
Why do you pick me up?
Because you're
Why?
here. Let me see, I'm gonna put that in here.
So, in advance of these meetings coming up, at our last meeting, we decided a few things we were going to investigate. One was more details on buffers, and I tried to put on this handout, which you should get. Did you receive that, Penny? Through email? You didn't?
No, I didn't get anything, Sandy. Let me just double check. It would be today, right? You said you were going to send it, unless I overlooked it. No.
Okay. I can pull it up on screen in a minute. I'll just mention what I was trying to do here and what we need to correct is what would be suggested as far as this tiered ecological priority for each of the natural resources. What we're recommending, in other words, what's on the map that Jens has established for the primary and secondary conservation areas, and compared that to what our current Underhill zoning has for those features, so that we're clear. And when we present it to these other commissions, they can see how this is different from what we already have. And in some cases, it isn't a huge difference, except that you have a map that shows it, in a very dominant way through these colors and everything that's there.
Yeah.
So let me pull that up on screen so that we can all see the same thing. Just give me a second here. And then go back to go to meeting. Someplace here and share. All right. Why doesn't it want that? Why is it showing it up there? For goodness sakes.
So Sandy, I'm seeing a nice big Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. You are. All right. Good. It's not showing on our screen, but that's okay.
So what does the title say, Penny?
The title is Underhill Tiered Ecological Priority Recommendations. I'm seeing rows 2 through 15 on my screen. The window shows that 2 through 15.
Okay. I think that's right. When we start talking, we'll verify it is. So if we start at the first one, this is a primary conservation area, rare, threatened, endangered species. Our recommendation is no disturbance, and I believe it also is under our current zoning, no disturbance. They're all protected, right? So the next one is wetlands, natural communities. And Jens didn't separate out class 1 and class 2. So I'm not certain of this. But for class 1, it would be 100-foot buffer, would be no disturbance, which is what we have currently. And for class 2 wetlands, this is where I'm not certain. It might actually be 100 feet also, and our current one is 50 feet.
So you're unsure of the recommendation?
I am, because he didn't separate them out.
Okay. Maybe it was a 1 and 2 blanket sort of.
Right,
buffer.
and I mean, if he just has wetland natural communities, it also could be class 3, which I don't think is what we would be recommending, right? And this is 100 feet from stream, from the edge to, the edge,
Top of the bank.
No, this is wetland, so there shouldn't be a top of the bank. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I was
reading, thinking Brooks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I suggest you circle that 50 feet buffer, and it possibly is 100 feet, and that would be something we'd want to discuss. Is that appropriate for us to do?
Penny.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the new regulations around wetlands that they worked on last spring, and it's S something? What is do you remember? That's it. I referenced it about in regard to beavers, but I can't remember I didn't write down the.
You mean the one that just passed? I think it's going to be coming. They haven't formalized, I don't believe, Karen, what the regulations will be. It's just that it's a flood protection regulation that means that the state will regulate it as opposed to the municipality, but I don't believe they've actually come up with the regulations yet. It's going to be a study of how to do it, of what the regulation should be, is my understanding.
Okay, I was reading about it through the Beaver group, so maybe they interpreted it.
I think you talked about it last time as being Act 121.
Oh, maybe.
Right.
Flood Safety Act.
That's right. So it's moving the regulations, the regulatory body from the municipality to the state in certain instances, and the state is going to be developing regulations around that. But my understanding, it's a process. They were having focus groups currently and that sort of thing.
Okay, so they're in process. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So Act 121 may change this from being a town designation to a state one, in which case we wouldn't have a say on what the distances were, unless we want to be more extreme.
I think that's right, Sandy. And my recollection is, but I can check it out quickly, is this regulatory process that they're trying to ferret out is over years. I mean, I think they're anticipating this is going to be 3 to 5 years to figure out what the regulations are. So it doesn't mean, I don't think it needs to discourage municipalities from thinking through their regulations right now. I just want to ask one other thing quickly. I can't see the column titles are not floating. So I just wanted to confirm that C is what is currently in our regulations, and D, column D, is what Rianne recommends. Is that it? Or no, vice versa?
The first column is our recommendation, and the second column is the Underhill, the current zoning regulations.
Okay, great, thanks.
So,
And that Act 121 would be in reference to streams?
wetlands, river corridors, development and dam safety.
Yeah,
That's
when
what
you
the
think
title
of a lot of our wetlands were classified as beaver wetlands, so it's probably in that realm. I think I'll continue down here, and then we'll come back to the ones that we have questions. How about that? So we also wonder about class 3 wetlands and where they lie. So moving on to forested riparian areas, he didn't have that broken down, but I broke it down into named streams, and we have, I think, 11 different streams that are named in town. And for those, it would be a 200-foot buffer with no disturbance, and our current regulation is 100 feet. And for unnamed streams, again, I think he lumped those all together, but without looking at specific unnamed streams in on the map, I'm not sure about that 200 feet there. Our current one is 25 feet. And that one is measured from the center of the stream because they're small and often don't have stream banks, whereas the named streams are from the stream edge or top of slope. Have I got that right?
Top of the slope.
Top of slope, yeah.
What is the current definition of stream?
Okay, this This is the riparian areas, though. It's not necessarily the stream.
But I'm just wondering an unnamed stream is,
Okay,
at one
I see
point,
what you
at
mean.
what point is it a
Ephemeral,
ephemeral or
yeah.
seasonal?
Uh-huh.
I like that name, but
That we would have to rely on our current regulations, which
right, that's what I was just wondering.
Oh, I didn't bring.
I didn't bring
I
that
should have
either.
brought my book.
I've got them and I got them open right now, so I'll check that out.
Okay,
Okay, I send everybody Act 121.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In riparian areas, I was looking at, let's see, which book was it? Where they talk about that distance. I think it's this one. And the reason I bring this up is it says in Vermont, many of our rivers, streams, lakes, and wetlands no longer have functioning riparian areas due to more than 200 years of intensive use. And that was the wrong place. I didn't want to read that. It was talking about the distance there. Oh, here we go. Let's see. In general, a naturally vegetated 100-foot wide riparian buffer on each side of the stream will protect many of the functions associated with healthy riparian habitat. A 330-foot buffer will protect nearly all functions. So what this tells me is our 200 is sort of in between those. It's accentuating more of the, it's protecting more of the functions without going 330 feet. It helped me to understand that a little better because 200 feet sounded like a lot to me.
Is this a good point for me to read the definition of stream?
Sure.
So there are three definitions related to streams: stream, stream channel, and stream bank. So it says stream is any surface water course in the town of Underhill as depicted on the U.S. Geological Survey on topographic maps, the Underhill zoning map, Vermont base map orthophotos, or as identified through site investigation, but excluding artificially created irrigation and drainage channels. This definition includes any stream channel 2 feet or more below the elevation of surrounding land, with well-defined stream banks that directs the flow of surface water. And then it says, see the definitions below. Stream channel is a defined area that demonstrates clear evidence of the permanent or intermittent passage of water and includes, but may not be limited to, bedrock channels, gravel beds, sand and silt beds, and swales. A stream bank may define the usual boundaries, but not the flood boundaries of a stream channel. Artificially created watercourses, such as agricultural irrigation and drainage ditches, are specifically excluded from this definition. And then it says, see below. Stream bank is a physiographic feature that normally contains a stream within a channel. Stream banks are distinct from the stream bed, which is normally wetted and provides a substrate that supports aquatic organisms. For the purposes of these regulations, top of bank is defined as the point along a stream bank where an abrupt change in slope is evident. and where the stream is generally able to overflow the banks and enter the adjacent floodplain only during flows at or exceeding the average annual high water stage. Top of slope is defined as a break in the slope adjacent to steep banked streams that have little or no floodplain. That's a mouthful.
So the forested riparian areas are defined in the natural resources inventory.
Yeah,
So, and it's a buffer to the edge of those.
right.
To say the riparian areas, the forested riparian area is already 200 feet, it would be 200 feet from the edge of that. 200 additional?
No,
Or just-
no.
It would just be strictly
The width
protecting
of that,
the width of that riparian area
right.
from center.
Karen,
Not from
On-
center, from bank. Oh,
Well,
on the unnamed
On the
ones.
unnamed.
Yeah,
From center and then from back on the named.
yeah.
Got it.
Karen, currently, isn't it that we have a setback from a stream and half of that setback is the riparian area? And isn't it that we can impinge on that riparian area by 50%, something like that?
We're talking about the Underhill regulations?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does say something like that, and I might have misinterpreted it because I was thinking it was saying 50%. In other words, if the buffer is 100 feet, half of it would be on one side and half of it would be on the other.
I thought it was, if it's 100 feet, it's 100 feet on one side and 100 feet on the other.
Right, but it says something different in the regulations, right, Penny?
I think it has to do with riparian. I'll look it up right now, but Karen, I'm thinking of the Historical Society. Remember the shed that they wanted to put, and we had to find in the regulations that they could impinge upon that riparian area 50%. And the riparian area is 50% of the full setback, which was whatever it was, 100 feet, or it was 100 feet, I guess. But I'll look it up.
Okay, while you're doing that, should we just move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't mean to sidetrack. I was just trying to
No,
clarify in my own brain.
it is important to clarify.
Next time I'm gonna bring the regulations with me.
You know what? I've got it right here before you move on. I could just say the riparian buffer, at minimum, 1/2 of the required setback distance as measured horizontally from the top of stream bank or top of slope, whichever is applicable, shall be maintained as an undisturbed, naturally vegetated riparian buffer.
So we've got a brook, a stream. It's 100 feet buffer zone, and then an additional 50 feet for the riparian sort of.
No, the riparian is, it says, that's not my interpretation or how we've interpreted it before, I don't think. It's a 1/2 of the required setback distance is riparian. I think it's within that 100 feet. Half of it is riparian. And the reason that is called out separately is because it has to be maintained naturally vegetated. And I think we can impinge on the riparian setback somewhat.
Okay, so let's do the numbers.
Yeah.
You tell me by saying 100 feet
Yeah,
And half of that 100 feet is considered riparian
right.
setback?
I believe
So
it's 100 feet and starting at the 50 feet from the stream bank to the end of that 100 feet is riparian, is my understanding.
okay.
Oh, wait a minute, say that again?
Yeah,
So are you saying that the first 50 feet are not, are considered a buffer, and the second 50 feet are considered the riparian area?
no, I think she said maybe the first 50 feet are the wetlands, and then the next 50 feet are the riparian buffer, the wetland buffer to the wetland. Isn't that what you're saying?
I think that's how we were, that is Karen's interpretation, I think is how we've interpreted it. That
Yeah,
the first 50 feet is potentially wetlands, and then the next 50 feet is the buffer of the wetlands. So the stream could overflow into that first 50 feet or move around into that first 50 feet. And then the next 50 feet has to be maintained, naturally vegetated as a riparian area. But I think we also say, hold on one second, that we can encroach on that riparian area to a certain amount. But maybe we're interpreting incorrectly, but I think that's how the DRB has interpreted it, as Karen has suggested.
that's what I think. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit different than what the state is saying.
Okay.
But we have, Penny's right. That's how they
Okay.
have been interpreted as.
So basically, from the edge of the stream, we'll say that full 100 feet is all a riparian area. Part of it is also considered a wetland by the DRB. In other words, it's a floodplain. So in our case, with this recommendation, we're just saying there's 200 feet. It's the riparian area, period.
Period. Yeah.
And in this case, we're saying it's a primary conservation area, so no disturbance.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just so we all understand that part of it. Okay?
Yes.
So I think if I left that 100 feet, that would still be correct. It's just that when you're going to interpret it by the DRB, it's done in a unique way.
Well, it is now, but it could change. I mean, because
Okay, all right. I'm not sure how to write it then. I'll say 100 feet, and the note will be half of it wetland or floodplain
For current.
for the current. And for unnamed streams, do you think 25 feet is what you currently are using? I'm only saying that based on the class 3 wetland currently is 25 feet. So I don't know about unnamed streams.
So an unnamed stream could be like the ditch at,
Well, this is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
That was considered a class 1 wetland though. I mean, class 2.
Yeah. I think that I thought for some reason we did away with class 3 wetlands.
Well, you can't because the state has a class 3
I
wetland.
think we combined it with class 2. Isn't that what we?
Well, the way the state rule is that the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers actually has jurisdiction over Class 3 wetlands.
Karen, what we got rid of, as I recollect, was that we had I think 100-foot setback from Class 3 at one time, and we were the only town in the state that did that. And I think we got rid of that 100-foot setback and went to the same setback, I thought, as our Class 2, or are we not? Are we 25? I'm just gonna look it up right now.
Let's do 50 feet.
I think it's 50 feet though, Class 2.
It is 50 feet, right? But maybe we changed to 25 with Class 3. Maybe that's what we did. But we were at 100. It was some weird, very weird situation. Hold on one second. I'll let you know.
I'm glad our zoning regulations are so crystal clear.
It's fun.
Well, it's kind of funny. Karen and I probably remember all of this when we're in a DRB meeting, but we just can't remember now because we're sort of out of place in time, you know? Okay.
I know.
Here we are. My search function just wasn't quite working right. All right. So 100 feet from Class 1 wetlands, 50 feet from Class 2 wetlands, riparian buffer, wetland buffer, and name streams. Where are we here? Hold on one sec. And Class 3. So we were just talking about, the issue was about our unnamed streams, right?
Right.
Okay, so 100 feet from the named streams as measured horizontally from top of bank, 50 feet is measured from top of slope, which is all very confusing. That has to all be rewritten, I think. 100
Yes.
feet from Class 1, 50 feet from Class 2. And where does it say unnamed? Unnamed watercourse. It doesn't really say here that I can find. I'll look it up. Maybe I can't believe we don't have a setback from some sort of a stream. I'll look it up. I'll get back to you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to, we're still in the primary conservation area category, and we have, now we have S1, S2, and S3 natural communities. And we're saying no disturbance there. And I think, some of these are kind of rare communities, so I don't know how the DRB would treat those. We could look for,
And they're only as good as what's been identified. Right? I mean,
right. Well, if someone was going to subdivide, yeah, how would the DRB know if it was an unusual?
We would ask.
Our zoning administrator would identify it.
Or no, if we did a site visit, one of us might notice that it looked like it was a natural community. And so we would ask the applicant to have
analysis done.
analysis done.
So the site visit triggers that, and then what would you do about it?
Well, they have to.
So they do
They have to have
a survey.
a survey, and then they bring the findings back in.
But see, I consider that a weak link in the regulations, because if Karen is not there for a site visit, that may not get identified at all. And so I think that having something on a piece of paper, something, or that, Andrew used to use the A&R maps and the BioFinder to guide him. So if it's not something that can be looked up, then it's catch as catch can. If Karen is there or if Dan Lee happens to recognize something, otherwise it doesn't get picked up. So that's a problem.
And it is a problem because Andrew used to look at all the maps
Yes.
before we had a, yes.
Yeah, so that's
But
just
that
a
isn't happening now.
fact, we don't have an administrator that does that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that has to be on maps and has to be something that is a part of the zoning administrator's process. So I don't know if are those communities actually natural communities on a map on a layer that he looks at. So that maybe that's something that we also can do is we have to write down the process, the layers for a zoning administrator to look at.
Well, I think what we're hitting on is that this will be an improvement. We will have a map with those natural communities on it.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, their mapping didn't catch everything, but at least it will be an improvement over what you did have, right?
Right.
Okay.
And just if I may, just back up one or two. In addition, all structures and other impervious surfaces shall be set back at least 25 feet from other naturally occurring streams and rivers as measured horizontally from top of bank or channel center line where no bank is discernible.
All right, so that would be the 25-foot designation.
Right. But shockingly, it says channel center line. I think to me, I mean, if a stream is 10 feet wide, then that makes a bit of a difference there, or 15 feet wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
So that's center channel. Okay. Okay. Next, townwide connectivity model. We are saying no disturbance. What I'm not clear on is what the distance there is. It's not a line. It's probably some width. So that's what we need to figure out. Again, a question for Jens or looking at the map, I guess. But right now, we don't really have any protection for corridors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So vernal pools would be 100-foot buffer. And then, I don't know, I think our regulations would be that way too. Although, yes, no, yes.
I think so. I'll look that up. But my question is that just recognized? That's
Yes.
okay.
It's only the ones that are on a map.
Okay.
There are not many.
Yeah, and I mean, Arrowwood added some that weren't on our town map anyways, sort of an update, but yeah, we don't have that many.
That many identified.
Identified, right.
But that would be also something that would be triggered
By a site
by a
visit.
development.
Well, only triggered by a site visit though, Ryan, if it's at a certain time of year. And there are a number of applicants who will apply in the fall and to try to get their permits for subdividing by spring.
Sure.
Right.
And so what we are finding is we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continuing on, we have we have actual rivers and streams that are named. So where there isn't a forested riparian area, then the streams get buffered anyways. And that is I think it's 50 feet. I mean, that's what it said on Jens's table. Although I think we have 100 feet, don't we, in our zoning?
Buffer from,
From named
Streams.
streams.
oh, I think we do.
Yeah.
I think we do, actually.
So we may want to keep that rather than going backwards to a 50 foot. And again, he's lumped named and unnamed, so I'm not sure if it's all 50 feet or what. But. So that completes.
That's all. That's all correct. It is 100 feet from certain brooks or rivers, and then it's 50 or 100 feet from the top of bank, or 50 feet of orchard from the top of slope. That's it. And then that is from the ones they name, and the ones that they don't name, it's that 25 feet.
Okay.
And we're going to recommend then 50 feet.
Well, right now, that's what's on the map that Jens did. And it didn't distinguish. I don't think he's distinguished between named and unnamed. So it's, again, another question that we have. And then getting into the secondary conservation areas, this includes early successional habitats, mass stands, which again, that's just beech trees, ledges, talus, and cliffs, S4 and S5 natural communities, and vernal pools, that 100 to 600 feet zone. And all of these would come with management recommendations. So it's not a no disturb, but it would be, whatever is decided about how to manage those.
Yeah. Just a point with mast stands. Do we have? I have a few. I mean, up where I live, there are a few oak trees, and oak acorns are considered mast as well. Are there places in Underhill that have a lot of oak, or is it sort of just sporadic? It's they're not as prolific as beech trees.
Yeah, it's just harder to map them. Beech, you can because during aerial surveys that the state does, beech bark disease is so prevalent, they can actually map where those concentrations are, but they don't have something similar for oak. I think one could in the fall, there's that period when most hardwoods have shed leaves, but oaks still have them.
Yeah.
You could come up with some good polygons of them, but we don't have anything for that. So it's not on a map.
Okay.
That's for you to do in the future, Karen.
Yeah.
There are some stands in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is a mass stand then something that's defined somewhere as, or the consultant would define as it's no less than 20 trees or no less than 200?
I'm not sure how they define if oak is the mass stand, but for beech, they can tell by beech scars, bear scars, and they can actually tell if it's recent or past and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a site visit determination, I guess.
I go back to the to the natural communities. The DRB is not really educated, I don't think, or can we be confident that future DRB members know what they're talking about with regards to natural resources unless Karen is there. So when we say management recommendations, does that mean that we're then saying if these, if mass stands or early successional habitats are located within their property, that they would need to get a consultant to do a survey of their land. Is that what we're saying? And create management recommendations rather than the DRB surveying and creating management recommendations?
I think that is a correct assessment.
Yes.
Let me point out what Jericho does. I looked at their natural resource overlay district, and they have, reams of information about how they're treating those areas. So for their secondary ecological priority areas, they say like vernal pool land development shall not, vernal pools in the buffer area. Let's see, S1, S2, S3, S4, S5. I'm sorry, I'm not finding the correct place here. So vernal pools in that 100 to 600 foot buffer. Land development may be permitted to occur within that buffer area only if approved as a conditional use in accordance with, and they give some references to where you look at the table and whatnot. But I think it's going to take some writing for the Planning Commission to come up with the correct language that will make it clear enough so you don't have to do any guessing. Here's one for land development shall minimize habitat fragmentation. And it describes what that means. Habitat may be minimized through careful design, engineering, and siting of roads, driveways, buildings, parking lots, etc. Best practices to minimize road and driveway length, cluster and minimize building envelopes. It's all of those kind of things that will need to be added to our regulations to make sure it's not, you're gritting your teeth.
I will just to remind you of one thing as a planning commissioner, and just to tell you about just briefly maybe something that was successful was, so one thing to remind you is that Sabina said that how they handle it, and Jericho, she doesn't even know if it's been successful or not, that what that overlay does is it diverts the application for the subdivision, say for instance, to the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission reviews it and makes recommendations to the DRB, but she has absolutely no idea if the DRB has taken those recommendations or what they've done with it. And remember, she said that would be a good activity to find out if over the last couple of years if they've even honored or how they've created conditions, or if they have created conditions. And then the other thing is that Karen, remember on Irish Settlement Road, Michael, can't remember his name right now. Anyway, Mike was developing in an area that is near Maycomber Hill. Is that what it's called, Karen?
Maycomber Ridge, you mean?
Maycomber Ridge, and the concern of the residents in that area who are very familiar with movement of animals was that it would really disturb the wintering area and the movement, the connectivity of that area. And so the DRB required him to get I forget what we called it, like a biological assessment of the property. And so the ecologists or biological scientists actually said, we don't recommend building in this part of the parcel. We think that is where animals need to move, that's where maybe they overwinter. I can't remember exactly what they said. We would recommend building within so many feet of the road. And so I think that was helpful to the DRB. Just I wanted to give you a DRB perspective on that. That was helpful to the DRB because we felt that we had something we could actually sink our teeth in, a professional telling us, and we could go with that rather than a regulation that says minimize this, minimize that, be concerned about that sort of thing, because we don't know, we are not, and we have differing opinions on the DRBs, but we're not ecologists. Okay, so that's
I think for that subdivision also, there were some rare communities of on the south side of where he wanted to put a driveway crossing. I think there's something there. There were in particular amphibian crossing. I think is what his person found. And maybe not, maybe I'm getting that confused, but I think that's one part of that was that. And I think the other part of that is that the other side of the road basically backs right up to the Crane Brook area where that is a wildlife corridor.
Right, that's right. So Sandy, I just bring that up not as a means of griping, but just to say that just a food for thought for the back of your mind, that the language used, maybe, I don't know, just think through it. Maybe it's the idea is minimize this and minimize that, but it's highly recommended that the DRB require a biological survey of anything within a secondary or primary conservation area or something like that. And I think I would also be very interested to know how much those surveys have cost the applicant, because that's another thing that the DRB really, I think some members really are reluctant to want to add more charges to an applicant's subdividing or developing their property.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, the management recommendation part is going to take some work, and I think being as specific as possible will be the most helpful. One thing that Jens had mentioned to me was that maybe Jericho wasn't the best example because they had come up with specific recommendations that were different for each type of example, whereas maybe other towns had some more general but could be used for all cases. Not exactly sure what that is without diving into it deeper, but just so we can bear in mind that we probably have to look at a variety of different towns and what they've done.
Yeah, and in those publications, did they have recommendations in those too?
They do, yeah. So. Mm-hmm. They have regulatory and non-regulatory examples, which I think will be very helpful. Not always as specific as like the zoning regulations might need to be, though. So. Okay, so we've identified questions. Does anybody want to go back and say whether or not we agree with the wetlands or riparian area buffers, or wait till we talk to Jens about getting clarification on those? In other words, do you want to be as protective as possible at this point, with the idea that we could discuss, minimizing it more in the future, or, as part of the discussion or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Your answer is yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good
start.
good start.
Sure, yeah.
And
And Penny put her thumbs up.
yeah, I think the joint meeting with
Planning and conservation.
conservation might be able to suss some of that out.
Yeah. Hope so.
So it's not all on us.
Yeah.
This is a recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. That is a good place. We can use this when we talk to Jens and
It's nice to get
Get
together
that.
like that.
okay. There were some other things people were going to check on, and I'll just run through what I had in my notes. If anyone had, Ryan, you were going to do some GIS to see what the differences were between the town-wide connectivity versus the, I forget what they called the other one.
What's that?
Phase, something phase.
Yeah. Something from last meeting. I did not do that, but I still can.
Okay. Yeah, any special advice you'd have on those would be helpful.
Okay.
Um,
That.
I don't think I said I'd do anything for this.
let's see, more detailed on buffers with the top of the bank. That's just going to be a problem forever, isn't it?
We were doing drawings of it at one point.
Yeah, I bet.
At the DRB.
Sandy, I have a whole file on all of that I would love to just offload to you and the Planning Commission.
And it had to do particularly with the Crane Brook, if I remember right, and didn't it?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
we
it
were-
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll write down that Penny has a file, and we'll get into that in more depth at another time. I have written down prime ag. We don't have any protective measures or anything for prime ag other than what the state requires, right?
Right.
And we've talked about it a little bit because I brought up the example of South Burlington where they actually are putting in a housing development, but they said they did an offset trade of another area,
Right,
which
for prime ag.
for prime ag was pretty, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
But at the DRV, we didn't, I mean, yeah, we see it. It says, yes, this is prime ag. And then someone else will say, but we don't have any other place to build. You sort of go around and
How much prime ag is there in Underhill?
not
Can't be that much.
not that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it is on the river road, I think,
It's a little bit on Beartown Road that's been built on now. And,
There too. Really.
yeah.
Sandy, I wonder if it might just another food for thought when the Planning Commission is thinking about wording and how to embrace all of these setbacks and ideas for development versus no development. Not only inviting the Conservation Commission, but at some point inviting the DRB to maybe understand what their challenges have been and their ideas for wording and where they've gotten stuck on wording and the light. It might be helpful to understand what's been happening in the past regarding that from the horse's mouth. Just a thought.
So something other than what you had on that grand master list that you gave the Planning Commission
Yeah.
of like nebulous language kind of things.
Right, because now you're talking about Now you're talking about areas that we haven't even addressed before, you know, secondary conservation area, mass stands, and, you know, I mean, it might be good to get the DRB to noodle on where they might see some hangups with wording or how they've had. Yeah, I mean, the things that have gone on that grand list are things mainly that Andrew and I have identified, or Brad and I have identified over time. It's not really, we've never, only met maybe once or twice with the DRB to think back. We don't really keep it current. And so it might be useful to sort of probe the minds of some of the DRB. I think that they would think it helpful if they could maybe advise on some language that has not worked for them or that has worked for them in terms of applying the regulations. It's just something to think about.
And
You know,
and
it's that regional idea.
yeah. Also, though, with this, we don't, when you put on your DRB hat, we're not talking in terms of primary conservation areas or secondary ones, but that's, you know, we're looking, I mean, those terms have never come up.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, these are going to be new.
They'll be new, and I think it's a good thing. That it'll be introduced into but that would be good to have the DRB as sort of an education session for them, for us.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking for ag lands if the state has some.
I think.
Pretty sure it's in the ANRLS, but.
Yeah, under what category though? I don't see it. Let's see, oh, well, there's land cover. Agriculture. I wonder if that's, let's see, if that's prime land or where there is agriculture. Because it's based on the land used, right?
Oh, here it is, in Vermont. Oh, wait a minute.
Prime ag.
Oh, I was
Prime
looking.
ag is based on soil type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the land cover data that identifies agriculture is probably just where it is. Yeah. I mean, so far that doesn't look that same. Sorry.
And also, I'm just like, I don't know where they got this from. Agricultural land in Vermont also includes buffer zones as defined by Agency of Agriculture. I don't know where that. I don't think that's right. I mean, this is partly AI coming into the conversation.
Ooh, that's all.
Oh, wait a minute, here it is. 32 VSA. Agricultural land means any land exclusive of any home site in active use to grow hay or cultivated crops, pasture, livestock, cultivated trees, tree bearing.
In our regulations, it is, as Ryan said, it's prime and statewide agricultural soils.
I just found the layer.
But it does say also avoiding impact to primary agricultural soils, open fields, orchards, maple sugar stands.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's all of Underhill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got to be a whole conservation area.
Dear.
There, you know, the one thing about agriculture is that, and separately for something I'm doing with the horse community, we asked Vermont Law School one of the students went on looking to find the definition of agriculture. And there are many definitions for agriculture in Vermont, depending upon what
Yeah.
Where
Sure.
you know, what
Yeah.
department you're in and which part of the department. Because I'm just reading this, which came up as in something. Anyway,
I think we should probably look into this. Yes, the River Road has a lot of the prime ag soils, but there's also like this huge hunk up near where you are, on between Stevensville Road and Maple Leaf Road. I guess is that Maple Leaf where the Maple Leaf Farm was?
yeah.
Yeah. There's a huge area there. That's all prime ag soil. Yeah. Um, okay, so what should we do with that?
Yeah, yeah. What if it's prime ag soil, but it's totally newly forested? What if it's ended up being completely forested? Does that mean we should respect the prime ag soil and be deferential to that, or it's evolved into something else?
Well, it could always be cleared and still be a excellent agricultural soil. That's the thing, just, you know, unless it's built on, then it won't be, you wouldn't be able to use it for agriculture. Maybe that should be a secondary, I don't know.
Secondary conservation area.
Yeah, if it's not on there already. Yeah, I think there's all of this data that Arrowwood has put on a natural community map. And then there's these few other things that are important to conserve in one way or another. Agricultural soils is one. Erodible soils is another, like steep slopes. What was the third one I was thinking of? Yeah, anyways, shouldn't we be including those on here in some way? What do people think on this?
Well, for the steep slopes, they're already fairly well protected in terms of from the perspective of the DRB.
Just based on the slope angle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty rigorous.
I mean, are there erodible soils that are not steep slopes?
I wouldn't think so, actually.
I think they'd wash away.
I mean, what we're learning with this new era of flooding is that almost any place is erodible.
Sandy, what about the idea of, this is maybe doesn't dovetail exactly, but the idea of streams moving or our named brooks moving, and that becomes erodible soil, doesn't it? And what about that with regards to our buffers? Remember that Stacy was recommending perhaps the top of bank really can't be considered maybe like a stream buffer has to be wider in certain areas because of how streams move.
Yeah,
But as streams move, so do the buffers.
Yeah.
So there's some
that's
built-in flexibility there. Right?
All right.
And I think the important thing to remember is that the map is not site specific. So if you go onto a property where, it's showing something and you find that it should be wider or more narrow, that's where the site mapping can be different, right? This isn't a map that is, I don't know. I forget the language that, maybe that's what Jens has on his thing. It's intended for town and watershed shed level planning. It's recommended as a tool to consider strategies, the best available data to date, but it is not suitable for site level review. So, yeah. So the stream moves, and so the site level data moves with it. All right, so time is marching on. Should we put ag soil on this list, or should we just go with what we have?
I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's look at that.
And having a management recommendation, just like any of the other
Okay. As a
secondary
secondary.
conservation, just something to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
You agree, Penny? Okay. Let's move on. The final thing tonight is to look at the annual report, which I forgot to print. And we can either talk about it now, or I can send it and you can just review it and offer edits.
I think that's.
It's short. It's
Yeah.
very short this year.
Well, Penny, did you send it to Penny yet?
I sent it out. I don't know why Penny didn't get it.
I didn't get any.
I don't
When
think
did you send it?
Really?
Yeah.
I sent it about 3:00. What?
Really?
You didn't get it?
Well, I was actually stacking some of my wood for next year. It's been underneath a snowy tarp.
It's not in my inbox.
I didn't get it either.
No, I didn't. I think it didn't go.
Weird.
You sent it around 3. I didn't get it.
It's the agenda. It's the only attachment I got.
Oh, it doesn't even say I sent it. Maybe I didn't send it. Draft. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here's the handouts, everybody. Okay. Well, you should be getting them in.
Yeah, I think we can just read it and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not really
straightforward. Yeah.
a big deal.
Did you just send it to us?
I did, yeah.
Tiered. Okay. Annual report.
All right. What else? Any other business tonight? Our next meeting will be with Jens on January 8th at 10 a.m.
And I already put that in my phone.
And then we meet with the Planning Commission. I'm not sure, you have a calendar right there. What's the third Tuesday in January?
Third Tuesday in January? I'll look. I can do that right now. Okay.
That was obscure, right?
I think it's the 21st. 21st is the third Tuesday in January.
I guess my question is, do we want to meet then, or have we meetinged out in January?
Well, we've had 2 meetings.
We will have had 2 meetings, yeah.
Well, the thing is, if we've had 2 meetings and we're all energized,
Yeah.
What's that meeting for, Sandy?
The 21st?
Yeah.
That would just be our regularly
meeting.
scheduled meeting.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, how about, what about the idea of maybe making it an online meeting and then nobody has to travel down to the town office? It could be like a 2.5 meeting. It can be like a half meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we have to be in person? Is that it?
No.
Because
why, oh, because it's non-COVID now?
Only, but if it's a special meeting, then we don't have to, right?
Well,
And it,
if you announce it anyway, oh, some people might not. Well,
Yeah, I think the rule is
Hi.
someone has to be here.
and there's no, I'm just trying to think, is there any way to determine after the 8th whether we'll need a meeting that day?
After the 16th, after the
The 8th
meeting.
or the 16th?
Yeah.
It's too late, right? It's only 5 days now.
No,
wait, no, it's
you could
20.
still do it.
Yeah.
I just have to, usually I have to tell Amanda, I have to give her the agenda on Friday morning so she can post it for a Tuesday meeting. So
So maybe.
I see, yeah. I'm sort of in favor of not having an extra meeting. And if we feel like we need a special one in early February to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Any other business tonight?
I have something that's not really about this business, but sort of about the planning commission. And that is, what concerns me is with folks coming in with fill, for example, gravel or whatever. Would it be, is this sort of too out there to say that when a developer is coming in with fill or gravel, that they have to, it has to be certified that it doesn't have invasive species in it, in particular knotweed. And the only reason I'm thinking about that is today, or up on Beartown Road, and there's a place that probably is going to have fill put into it. It's a new road. It's an old logging road that is going to be a new, it's going to be, how can I say it diplomatically? It's been widened and there are some very wet areas. And if they decide to fill, it would be just a terrible, terrible shame if the fill had knotweed in it. And the reason I'm saying that is the knotweed problem that's on the Cranebrook Trail, the forester had suggested that it was brought in when people brought in gravel.
Sure.
So is there something that the planning commission could put into somewhere along that then would be translated into the DRB saying, well, we need certification?
I don't know how you do that. How
is
do you
there a
certify?
certification is there
No.
a certification process for it?
I don't mean that. I mean, they have to certify that it doesn't contain.
I can't imagine. I mean, how they aren't botanists. How would they know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, even when we're talking about the harvest crossing with that fill in my head, I'm going, oh my God, what if it has knotweed in it? It'll go, and there are other instances where I've seen knotweed growing where fill has been dropped, that's all.
Yeah, no, I
Very-
know. That's too.
The only thing I can imagine that people would do, how they would address that, the only thing I think they could do is spray the gravel with herbicide. Because otherwise they wouldn't even know. So if they had to certify, if they could get sued if it had knotweed in it, then I think that what they would do is spray it with herbicide.
Well, oh,
Yeah, that'd be great to enter into the water system.
yeah, that would be really good. Okay, scratch that thought, but I was just thinking out of the box. How can we make sure that we don't bring any more in?
It's worth checking on it. It's worth checking on it, though, and see if there's some other process. I'd love to be certified there are no jumping worm cocoons in it.
Ooh,
I know the State Forestry Division, when they hire skidder loggers to come in, you know, there's a big thing about how do we avoid getting seed into forests that way, or jumping worms, or any of that. And you know, I'm a little out of the loop now, but there was a whole thing about washing equipment with some power sprayers or something that could do that. But I don't know as anybody's found a good way to do that.
yeah. I did it, that brings up up at on Edwards Road, and I think this is over in Jeffersonville, it's still Edwards Road, but then there's like a slight logging trail that you can bike, and it takes you over to their ski trails, and there is knotweed in there. And I know that a lot of work was done to repair, after a wash, some of the cross-country bridges. And, you know, I'm like, how did that get here? You know, just.
I found bases on our property this year that I've never found before. No idea where they came from. I haven't found. It's it's wild.
Yeah, it takes like, you know, looking all the time and seeing where you find it and digging it up. But, All right, well, shall we have a motion to adjourn?
I can make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.